Hey there and welcome back to Mutant Year Zero. My name is Pete and today we complete episode 5 of our Iron Mutant playthrough. In the last episode we continued our search for Hammon at the House of Bones, and while we did not find the man himself, we rescued one of his companions in Magnus. So naturally today we want to see what Magnus can do in the field, which is why we will now switch out Selma. Before we do though, we want to remove all of her equipment. Most of this will be useful for Magnus as well. The first thing that we then want to look at are his mutations, and he does have a few very unique ones. For the first tier we have the choice between Dodge Dash and Telekinesis Shield, both of which are not terribly useful in my opinion, so we are going with the Shield for now since that is the cheaper one, and now allows Magnus to pull incoming bullets out of the air with a 35% chance and thus take no damage at all. Following that we have Sneak, which allows him to remain unseen when moving between covers, which I consider moderately useful, as being hidden of course also increases critical hit chance, but in practice I tend not to use it too much. However, now we get to the heart of his abilities with Puppeteer and Chain Lightning. One allows him to mind control enemies, the other to attack multiple enemies at once with a lightning attack. The game also has achievements that relate to both of these mutations, and we have enough points to unlock both of them early on here, so let's do just that. Moving on, we can see that Magnus comes with a weapon that we haven't seen yet. This is the Rambino Assault Rifle. As you can see, it has a good damage output, decent range, and already comes with a scope and a damage module attached. However, we will be making some changes to that in just a second. For the rest of his loadout, we want to ensure that he has a silent weapon in the crossbow. We also want to give him an EMP and a frag grenade. And finally, the snazzy visor for some range and the pyro armor for protection. Mutation-wise, we want to make sure to have Puppeteer equipped, and then we briefly move on to Dux, who now receives the boomstick that we picked up in the last episode. The reason for that is simple. This is the weapon with the highest critical hit damage that we currently have, so it makes some sense to give it to the character who can get those at will. And up next, we now pay a visit to Delta.
Hear those zone dogs are getting big. I mean, big. I hear they can knock you down if they get a running start, so don't go petting them or anything. And they travel in packs, so if you see a dog barking for his buddies, get the hell out of there. That advice is free of charge.
Right, first things first, we want to dismantle the scattergun now, as that has now become properly obsolete. And doing so gets us up to exactly 60 weapon parts, which means we can now upgrade the needle pistol to level 3, and with that max out our second weapon after the ancient pistol. Now at this point we will switch some scopes and damage modules around. I think I'll spare you the finer details, but one thing we definitely want to do is to take the red eye off of Magnus's Rambino. This scope gives a 15% increase in critical hit chance, and is therefore the perfect attachment for Dux's ancient pistol. That pistol now comes with a base critical hit chance of 25%, which actually means that in certain situations, Dux will no longer need his Skull Splitter ability to do guaranteed critical hits. Now for needle pistol and crossbow, our other two silent weapons, we are then going with the same attachments. Both will get the green eye for a 30% weapon range increase, as well as the broiler damage module for slightly increased critical damage and a 50% chance to set enemies on fire. The remaining attachments will then go on the Rambino and the Boomstick, our two most powerful non-silent weapons. The Rambino receives a slight range increase with the Ancient Sight, while the Boomstick receives the Ancient Eye for a 10% increase in critical hit chance, as well as the EMP damage module, which further boosts critical hit damage to 12. And there we go, that is our loadout for today. Up next, we'll quickly stop by Iridius, and then we'll get going.
Keep your head screwed on.
Those Novasec morons have no direct line to the Ancients. That's a load of rot. What they do have is a steady supply of mushrooms. And I don't mean the mushrooms growing in your toilet. I mean magic mushrooms. Well, not magic, but they do make you feel like you're someplace else. talking to a unicorn, playing a ukulele, or something. Never tried eating them, but they sound like fun.
Right, so I mostly stopped by here just for the conversation. We can take note of the fact that she actually has another crossbow for sale, so a fourth silent weapon is technically available, but we have no need for it.
Until next time.
Alright, and since we already listened to a lengthy monologue from the Elder in the last episode, it is now time to head out into the zone. Our journey today will bring us to Izza Fala, not a location that we need to visit in our search for Hammon, but one that we found exploring the House of Bones last time, and definitely one worth checking out.
Have you heard that old legend? The two star-crossed lovers, Izza and Fala, ran away to a lost palace. It's supposed to be around here. Who thinks this is the palace up ahead?
Was that the legend about Izza and Fala and all the loot they were hiding away in the lost palace? Because that's the story I'm interested in.
These star-crossed lovers better have some supplies. We need them.
Jaywalker! Jaywalker!
Just what I need. A bunch of metal men looking for trouble. Probably the ones who killed all these ghouls.
Alright, so our first enemy here is a robot, and actually one that we have not seen before. To ensure success in the upcoming fight, we want to hide ducks behind the car here, and then we can take a closer look at what we're dealing with. We have here a Polis Bot and a Polis Bot Enforcer, and unlike the Medbots that we have encountered so far, these two can actually harm us. Not to mention that the Enforcer is a powerful enemy with 26 hit points and 2 points of armor, so we are taking on these two one after another. Our first set of actions here is relatively simple. We just want to land silent shots with Bormin and Magnus, and with Magnus of course that requires switching to the crossbow. Now at this point our enemy has 7 hit points left and 1 point of armor, which means we need a critical to take it out. As you can see, on the ground here we do not even have a guaranteed regular hit, but we can solve that by using moth wings to get airborne. And since we are not moving too close, Dux actually also remains hidden, which results in our very first instance of a guaranteed critical hit without using Skull Splitter. This was, by the way, mechanical enemy number 5 that we have taken out.
Hey, follow me.
Which means that we have made it halfway to the anti-mechanic achievement. After collecting the loot, our next target is of course now the Enforcer, and looping around to the right here should give us a slightly better attack angle. Now this enemy is the reason why we equipped the EMP grenade on Magnus earlier, as we can now use that to disable the bot for 2 turns. Since the bot is disabled, it also can't detect anyone, which means that all of our units are considered hidden and therefore have increased critical hit chances. And as you can see, with Dux that already pays off, and by the way, since we are going first and the bot is disabled for 2 turns, we actually have 3 full turns before it can do anything, and even with 26 hit points and 2 points of armor, that is more than enough to take it out, and with our current loadout of silent weapons, we would be fine here even without a single critical hit. Now at this point the stun has worn off, but before the bot can act it is our turn once more. As you can see, I made a small mistake reloading and then moving with Dux, which actually ends his turn without him being able to shoot, but luckily Bormin is still in range and can go for the kill. And there we are, our first Polis Bot Enforcer has been taken care of and we have gained another level, and we will actually use this one, however not right now. For the moment we can collect some loot and there are actually plenty of weapon parts in this area, which means we are quickly back up to 20. For the next bit of loot we can then use a small trick and split our party.
Break up.
That way Bormin can venture all on his own to the southeastern edge of the map, where he can find some very well hidden scrap in the bushes. Afterwards we can then switch back to Magnus and regroup, and that saves us a few seconds. Up on the container here we find some more scrap and also see that we have a hunter and a marauder on the rooftop of the building ahead of us, and they will be coming up shortly on our hit list. However, prior to that we have a bit more loot to collect and then one other enemy to take out first.
What are the machines doing? They're crazier than us. We've got to run when they're not looking. That's what Sneville said. And Bilge and Mockley. Now Sneville, Bilge, and Mockley have no heads. But if they ran, Mockley had 1 foot. How can he run? We are faster than Mockley. We will make it.
Guess those rotheads are hiding from the metal men.
So as you can see, we have a decent number of enemies still left on this map. However, for the time being, our only target is the Shaman. Still, it should already be noted at this point that we also still have a tank to worry about, and with 26 hit points and 3 points of armor, that is going to be a small challenge. The Shaman, on the other hand, is easily taken out. We are able to do 17 points of damage silently, and conveniently enough, our enemy has 16 and no armor.
Nighty-night.
You ain't half bad for a newbie.
Hey, follow me.
5 more weapon parts can now be collected, and then it's time to head upstairs. However, we'll do so from the outside to avoid enemy detection.
Well, look at that. Izza and Fala. The fairy tales are true, huh?
At this point, we also learn where the name Izza and Fala comes from. Looks like this was once a restaurant serving pizza and falafel, and who knows, maybe some of those letters have fallen off over time. As you can see, our squad members can also move safely through the enemy detection radius without attracting attention. That was likely implemented for the sometimes a bit wonky AI pathfinding. In any case, now that we have assembled up here on the rooftop, we want to switch over to Magnus, and we want to wait until the Marauder has reached their lookout position up on the balcony here. At that point, we initiate combat, and now we're using Magnus's Puppeteer ability for the first time. Because the Marauder is considered to have a weak brain, we have a guaranteed success chance here. The Hunter, meanwhile, does not have that, so mind control would not be guaranteed on them. And with the Marauder under our control, we can then actually skip the rest of the turn. This can simply be done by digging down, and will not alert the Hunter of our presence. Now, the Marauder remains mind-controlled for 1 more turn, which means we have plenty of time to take out the Hunter first. And as you may have noticed by now, mind-controlling was absolutely not necessary here. However, like I said at the beginning of the video, there is an achievement for successfully mind-controlling 10 enemies, and over the course of the entire game we do not come by these guaranteed targets too often, so it's best to make the most of the opportunities that we have.
Bingo.
I hated that asshole.
Now, with the Hunter dead, we want to waste the Marauder's turn once again, but this time we cannot dig down for that, as that actually makes them 25% harder to hit, meaning we would not have any guaranteed hits on our next turn. A much simpler solution, therefore, is to simply dash. As a matter of fact, we can bring them into point-blank range.
Ow!
1 shot each from Dux and Bormin will then be enough for the kill, and that now brings us to the boss fight.
Yeah! You did good.
Come on.
Now, there are a few things that we have to consider here, the most important one being that the tank has the charge absorb ability, meaning they are immune to what we would normally do in this situation, and that is to simply use Hog Rush. So for this fight we have to use a slightly different approach, and that one includes Bormin's Joker ability. Using this mutation, we can ensure that enemies will focus on him for 1 turn, and since we have no way of incapacitating the tank and keep them from shooting, this is our next best option. As you can imagine though, all on its own this ability is rather useless. It does become much more potent though if we combine it with Stone Skin. With Dux, we also want to make sure to have Skull Splitter equipped, and if we play our cards right, that should be all to ensure success. Now, positioning-wise, we want to get Dux and Magnus into a good elevated position with a nice view of the battlefield, while Bormin moves a bit over to the right, but not all the way over to the right edge, otherwise there is a chance that he gets knocked off the roof, and for some reason Stone Skin does not protect against fall damage. Now at this point we have talked a lot about the tank, but not so much about the Hunter, and with good reason, as our first course of action here will be 2 frag grenades, 1 each from Magnus and Dux, and thanks to the damage upgrade that we grabbed from Prip's place, the Hunter does not survive that.
Let's get the fun.
Is weak!
Frickin' Zero, come at me.
Show me what you got, pipsqueak!
Since the tank is still alive and we have no way of killing it on this turn, we now want to activate Bormin's Joker and Stone Skin abilities. The activation of Stone Skin does not actually cost an action, so both mutations can be used in the same turn and we still have the option to fire afterwards. Now, since the tank is zoned in on Bormin, they will move as close as they can to take a shot.
I got you! I got you!
Normally, they would use a Hog Rush-like ability of their own, but Bormin is up on the high ground, so the tank has no way of reaching him. At this point, it is now time for a Boomstick Skull Splitter combination with ducks. The high ground gives us a guaranteed hit for 12 points of damage. Due to the tank's armor, only 9 of those are actually taken, but that is enough so that Magnus and his Rambino can now go for the kill.
Got that right. Nice.
And there we go, that is how we take out a tank.
Clean up.
Once again, we have gained a level, we are now up to 26, and we can also find the 6th artifact of the playthrough over here, unlocking the 50% Old Skool achievement, and kind of spoiling the fact that there are only 12 of these in the entire game.
A metal box with a door. Perhaps to keep something fresh. Food or drink, perhaps.
This looks like one of those cooling boxes. I've seen many, but none in a functional state such as this. The ghouls in this camp most likely use this to store keepsakes of their encounters with enemies. Let's open this up and take a look.
Okay, so we found ourselves a pipe gun, but as you may remember, we have actually been able to buy that from Iridia since the beginning of the game, which kind of indicates that it may not be all that useful, especially now that we have the Rambino with Magnus, which is pretty much a straight upgrade. Still, we'll take it with us, it can always be dismantled for weapon parts, and then it's time to clear the area of the last remaining bits of loot. However, once we have everything, we will not head back to the Ark just yet. If we take a left here and follow this small path, we will actually encounter a small hidden area, an area that is guarded by a few very powerful enemies. Yes, you are seeing that correctly, the Zone Dog here is level 45 and it is not on its own. If we sneak up a bit closer, we will eventually be able to detect 3 of them. The 2 in the back are stationary, with the one that we encountered first wandering around. Now, normally, the game would want us to make a note and come back here when we have a slightly higher level. After all, we would be facing enemies 19 levels higher than us. However, I think let's spice things up a bit and actually take these on. All we need for that is a small change to our squad, as we want to bring Selma back for this one. There is no need to give her any sort of fancy outfit or equipment though, simply taking the Rambino off of Magnus will be enough. Mutation-wise, we then want to make sure that she has Tree Hugger equipped, and we also want to unlock the Knee Shot mutation with ducks now. Knee Shot is basically Tree Hugger but for single targets. When it hits, it disables enemy movement for 2 turns, and in the upcoming fight that will certainly come in handy. Of course, we also want to make sure to actually equip it. This is a mistake that at the beginning of the game you will definitely make a few times, but at this point we are ready to go. Now, to start the fight, we want to draw the Zone Dog as far away from the other 2 as possible, and only then do we want to start the ambush. Our opening action will then actually be the Knee Shot ability. Unlike Skull Splitter, it does not come with any sort of aim penalty, which means we can use it very reliably.
Bingo.
Still, we want to make sure not to get too close with anyone, because on the next turn the other 2 Zone Dogs will rush in. Knee Shot does unfortunately not keep this one from alerting its friends, which is also the reason why we do not bother to go silent with Selma here. Now, this is where things get interesting, as the other 2 Zone Dogs are now attacking. Or rather, they would if they could actually reach us. Unfortunately though, they have to spend both of their turns on a full dash. So yes, all 3 of them are level 45, but the fact that they are melee enemies makes them rather easy to take care of, as all we have to do is to keep our distance, and if they get too close, keep them from moving. Now, the one zone dog that we started with can now be taken out by ducks. That leaves us with 2, and that is enough to unlock us another achievement. Yes, there is also an achievement in the game for trapping 10 enemies with Salma's Tree Hugger, and conveniently enough, these two here are number 9 and 10. So with the Green Fingers achievement unlocked, we can now keep shooting, and at this point you can probably see where this is going. Both zone dogs are completely helpless, and while they do have a good amount of health, they do not have any sort of armor, which means that all of our attacks are hitting in full force. Add to that the fact that we can freely use all of the loud weapons that we have, like the boomstick or the Rambino, and our squad is able to reliably dish out 21 points of damage in one turn. The zone dogs may be 19 levels higher than us, but they do not stand a chance. Just a few more bits of info while we continue to decimate them here. Magnus's Puppeteer ability unfortunately does not work on them. That would have been fun to use, I think, but the zone dogs are immune to that. However, what is possible is for the zone dogs to attack even if they are restrained, if one of our characters would be standing in the tile right next to them. So Tree Hugger really only hinders movement. We still want to keep our distance to stay safe. As you can see, the final zone dog is about to go down here, and that would then also be the map fully cleared.
Bang!
You did good.
Hey, follow me.
The Ancients left their machines running loose in the zone, and now we gotta face the consequences. They're killing ghouls left and right.
I would gladly introduce some killer machines to the nearest ghoul pack.
Machines kill anybody they come across, so watch out. Now, let's get this opened.
Alright, we have found another brand new weapon, the Slinger. This is another long-range rifle, just like the State Switcher that we found back in the Cave of Fear. As a matter of fact, it is a straight upgrade in every way. So it will definitely come with us, and then we're also done with Izza and Fala. Apart from what looks like 2 tram cars, there is nothing else to see here, so let's head back to the Ark. Now, our first stop is once again Delta's, because we have weapons to dismantle and weapon parts to spend.
Hi. If you're here to pick through my dad's stuff, it's been picked clean, okay? But if you want a fix or an upgrade, talk to me.
And an upgrade is in fact what we want. However, to get it, we need a few more parts. And we can get those by dismantling the aforementioned State Switcher and Pipe Gun. Like I said, both of these are kind of obsolete at this point. The Pipe Gun is clearly outclassed by the Rambino and the State Switcher by the Slinger, so other than as trophies on our shelf, they really do not have that much of a purpose. Dismantling the State Switcher gives us a whopping 17 parts, the Pipe Gun gives 9, that brings our total up to 63, and that is enough to get the crossbow to level 3. This means that we now have all 3 silent weapons fully upgraded, and so we can now easily deal 18 points of damage silently, but with the constantly increasing number of abilities that we are unlocking, our damage output per turn is potentially much higher.
Take it easy.
Now, that concludes our business here. Up next, we want to visit Prip's place.
Pull up a stool, Stalkers.
Now, we could have actually done this prior to embarking on the mission, but it wasn't really necessary, and I admit I kind of forgot about it. So let's grab Zapper now to increase the duration of EMP grenades by 1 turn. What we then want to move towards as quickly as possible is a Ranger, which gives us a flat 1-point weapon damage increase to every single weapon in the game. Needless to say, that is going to be immensely useful, but for the moment we are still missing 1 artifact to unlock it.
Have a swell time out there.
Finally then, as always, our last stop is with the Elder.
The intrepid heroes return. I hear you're almost to Hammon. Good. Keep vigilant. Don't let the zone vapors muddle your senses. I trust you will find him soon. Survive and persevere, my brave stalkers.
And indeed, we will continue our search for Hammon shortly. In the next episode, we will actually head south, but for today, I think we have reached a good point to make the cut. Now, to wrap things up, I have a small surprise for you, because our friend Tofu has also made some fan art for this series. I wasn't quite fast enough to put this picture of Bormin in the last episode, but it shows that scene from episode 3 in the Cave of Fear, where Bormin took on the Pyro. So thank you Tofu for bringing your gifts to this series as well. As always, your artwork is very much appreciated. And that's it for today, so as always, if you enjoyed the video, then I would be very happy if you could leave a thumbs up, and if you like what I'm doing and want to support me and my channel further, then you can go ahead and subscribe to stay up to date, grab some merch over on shop.petecomplete.com, or check out and maybe even pledge to the Pete Complete Patreon. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.